You do not remember being born. That is normal. No one does. But you have other memories. Your first day at school, someone you loved, a moment you lost something, the voice of someone who died, the smell of an old house. These memories feel real because you lived them. But what if you never lived them? What if all these memories, and you, and this exact moment, appeared from nothing just seconds ago? This is not a philosophical metaphor. This is a real physics question, and it has an answer that keeps the smartest cosmologists in the world from sleeping. In the second half of the 19th century, an Austrian physicist named Ludwig Boltzmann changed humanity's understanding of the universe. He proved something simple in its phrasing and devastating in its implications. Entropy is not a law, it is a probability. Entropy is the tendency of things toward disorder. A glass breaks and does not return. An egg cooks and does not go back to raw. Gas spreads through a room and does not gather in one corner. This is what physics says. Order always falls apart. But Boltzmann said, not always, just so rarely that the opposite almost never happens. Molecules move randomly, and in their random movement, they could theoretically gather in a way that reverses disorder. The probability of this happening is so small it cannot be imagined, but it is not zero, and this is where the problem began. In an infinite universe, time never ends, and in time that never ends, everything that is not impossible will happen. Not perhaps, it will happen. Molecules will randomly gather and form an Italian chef made of pasta, then dissolve. Molecules will gather and form a copy of a book that was never written, then dissolve. And molecules will gather and form a complete human brain, a brain with working neurons, with electricity running through it, and with one single moment of consciousness. A brain that feels it exists, a brain full of memories of an entire life that never happened. A brain watching a video about physics on a screen that does not exist in a reality that does not exist. Then it dissolves. This is what physicists call a Boltzmann brain. But why is this disturbing? Because the mathematics says something no one wants to hear. For a single brain with manufactured memories to appear from nothing, a very small amount of molecules needs to gather in a complex way. But for an entire universe containing hundreds of billions of galaxies, containing hundreds of billions of stars to appear, an unimaginable quantity of molecules needs to concentrate in a single point and then explode with breathtaking precision. The universe is incomparably more complex than a single brain, which means in pure probability, for every one universe that appears randomly, there are endless brains appearing and dissolving. The number of random brains exceeds the number of real creatures by something that cannot be conceived. So, at any given moment, the probability that you are a random brain is greater than the probability that you are a real person who lived a real life. This is not a metaphor. Physicists calculated this number. The probability that you are a real brain, a product of real biological evolution in a real universe, is 1 divided by 10 raised to a power whose size is larger than the number of stars in the universe multiplied by a septillion. Try to imagine that number. You cannot. No one can. The physicist Sean Carroll noticed something that makes this idea destroy itself. He said, if you accept that you are a random brain, you have just accepted that you are in a state of complete delusion. And if you are in a state of complete delusion, you cannot trust any conclusion you have reached, including this conclusion, which means accepting the idea of the Boltzmann brain makes it consume itself, because the brain that accepted it cannot trust its ability to accept it. But rejecting it does not make it disappear. The mathematics still says what it says. Modern cosmological models try to solve this paradox in different ways. Some say the universe was never infinite in time, and the Big Bang was a real beginning, not a random point in eternal chaos. Some say random brains cannot physically appear even if the equations allow them. Some say models that produce more random brains than real creatures are simply wrong models and not wrong creatures. But no one has solved the paradox definitively. And now we return to the moment we started with. You do not remember being born. You have memories of an entire life, people, places, feelings, experiences. All of them feel real because they exist in your brain right now. But the random brain also has memories that feel real. That is exactly what makes it a brain. There is no test you can perform on yourself to know the answer, because any test you perform, its result will exist in the same brain that might be random. From the inside, you cannot tell the difference. Sean Carroll says the only reasonable solution is what he calls the Copernican principle. Do not assume you are more exceptional than you have to be. Meaning, the simplest hypothesis is that you are a real creature, a product of real evolution in a real universe. This does not mean it is necessarily correct. It means it is the hypothesis that requires the fewest additional assumptions. But there is something striking in this answer. The real creature arrived at this answer through logical reasoning stretching across thousands of years of philosophy and physics and mathematics. The random brain arrived at the same answer in the first second of its existence. And here the question becomes different. The problem is not whether you are a random brain or not. The problem is what this possibility means for how you think, because physics does not raise this question to convince you that you are not real. It raises it to convince you of something more important, that what you feel as certainty may not be certainty, that your memory and your emotions and even your conclusions are built on information whose source you cannot verify. Humans live as if they know. They live as if their memories are accurate, as if their feelings are evidence, as if their conclusions are final. But even in the best possible scenario, you are a brain inside a skull, isolated from the external world, receiving signals and building from these signals a reality it believes is real. The difference between a Boltzmann brain and your brain is not in its structure. It is in the history of how it came to exist. And the question that remains is not, am I a random brain? The question is, if the difference between certainty and illusion cannot be tested from the inside, how do you live with what you know? Boltzmann himself, the man who opened this door, ended up taking his own life in 1906. He was not understood in his lifetime. His colleagues mocked him, and he spent his final years defending ideas he saw as truth, while others saw as madness. We do not know what he was thinking in his last moments, but we know he released a question that still troubles scientists 120 years later. Perhaps the ideas that no one can prove wrong are the ideas that deserve to survive, or perhaps they are simply the ideas you cannot sleep after hearing. You will decide. If there is a you